Hello everyone, welcome to the first tutorial in my Roblox scripting tutorial series. In this tutorial, we will go over the basics of Roblox Studio in the Lua programming language. First off, let's get started with learning how Studio is laid out. You'll see these tabs at the top. You have Home, Model, Avatar, Test, View, and Plugins. In the Home tab, you'll see a bunch of shortcuts to frequently used things such as spawning in a part, scaling that part, moving the part, and rotating the part. You'll also see things such as opening the toolbox, which has a ton of free assets that you can use in your game. Although I would suggest not using them unless it's for learning, because some people will get angry if you use a bunch of free assets in your game. The second tab is the Model tab. This tab contains a few of the things that we saw in the Home tab, but you can also do things such as apply materials to parts, which make it look different. Like you can apply a grass material, for example. You can also do things such as create welds, so parts will move with other parts, and also create particles or spawn points. The Avatar tab, I wouldn't really touch on, except the Avatar tab is mainly used to create accessories. I'm not really going to explain this at all. I might explain it briefly in one of the tutorials, but I probably will not get to this at all. In the Testing tab, you can do things such as debug by switching to the server or the client. So you can see what the client sees, which is what the player will see, or what the server sees, which basically means it's what everyone can see. You can also start a local instance of Roblox to test your game. So you can basically test with 5 different people, which will all be on your own computer, which is very useful. Or you can do team test, which allows you to test the game out with other people who are editing the game. The View tab allows you to open a bunch of different panels and change how some things are displayed on screen. For the rest of this tutorial, I would suggest enabling the Explorer and Properties. These are the two most important things that you will need. The Plugins tab contains a bunch of different plugins you can install, which help with things such as spawning text or having debugging tools. So Roblox allows you to install custom plugins, and you can find them up here. So now I'll explain how the Explorer and Properties panels work. So if you haven't already done so, please click on View and toggle on Explorer and Properties. The Explorer panel contains all of the instances you've added to your game. An instance is basically anything that's inside of your game. So it could be a part, it could be particles, it could be a sound. You can add an instance by hovering over any of these. The ones at the top level are called services. I'll touch more on those in the future. Except you could press the plus here or click on right click, insert object, and then there's a ton of different things you can use. You will not need to worry about most of these. I'll touch on a few of these in the future, except most of these you will never use. For example, I've never used add GUI. I presume that is to add advertisements to your game to earn Robux. Except I won't explain a lot of these. But you can easily find them by looking at the Roblox documentation. So in the Explorer tab, you have your services. Anything in Workspace, which is a service, will be shown to any player in the game. So as you can see, my part that I added earlier is in the Workspace. There's also Server Script Service, which is another one you'll use a lot. That will automatically run any script instances that you put inside of it. And you can add as many parts as you want, as many instances as you want, and they will get shown to your player if they're in Workspace. So now the Properties tab, if I click on one of these instances by clicking on them in the Workspace, by just literally left-clicking on it, or I click on them in the Explorer panel, it'll open up this Properties tab. Again, there's a lot here. I'll explain most of these things here, except the main things you want to worry about are the appearance. So in the appearance, you can change things such as transparency. So if I change this to 0.5, you'll see that this part is now transparent. If I change this to 1, it'll be fully invisible. If it changes to 0, it'll go back to normal. You can change the colors of everything. You can turn off things such as can collide. So if I go ahead and play the game, if I go to home and then I press on play, you'll see that it's actually gone because it's unanchored. Unanchored means it'll fall down and it'll be affected by physics. So if I go ahead and anchor this, so I just have to click on it, go to properties, toggle on anchored, then you should see I can walk straight through it. That's because I turned off can collide. So there's a bunch of really neat things you can do with that, and these tabs will be used the most, so you should probably get familiarized with the Explorer and Properties tabs. Okay, now we're going to move on to Lua, which is the programming language that Roblox uses. If we go ahead and create a script inside of server script service, we will see that there are 3 different types of scripts. There is the regular script, which will run on the server, the local script, which will run on the client, and the module script, which can be used by other scripts. For now, you only need to know the server script, except in the future, I will go more in depth on how the server and client work. For now, you can kind of just ignore that if you don't know how it works already. So let's go ahead and add a script to server script services. Any script that is put inside of here will automatically be run when the game starts. So, as you can see, it starts with this little function here called print. So what this does is there's a output panel down here. If you don't have that, you can go to view and then go to output. You can just toggle that on. And then anything that you print using this function here will go down here. So if I run the game, I will see hello world. All of these things below here, you can ignore that. These are from plugins that I have installed. So you don't need to worry about any of this on my screen. If you see this, don't be worried that yours doesn't have it for some reason. It's just because I have plugins installed. So in Lua, it's very similar to other programming languages if you've used them in the past. If you want to declare a variable, you can type local, and then the name of the variable, like hello equals hi, and then this will create a variable. So variables are basically, they allow you to store values inside of them. So this is called a string because it has the quotes. If I go ahead and do print hello, I can get rid of that. If I run the game, you'll see hi, and that's because I printed this variable, and this variable says hello, or I mean hi. If I do hello equals yay, now, since this is after this, it runs it in order, so it'll run this line, and then it'll run this line, and then it'll run this line. So what it'll do is it'll set the variable to hi, and then it'll go to the next line, it'll set it to yay, and then it'll go to this line, and since hello is now yay, because this line is before it, it'll print yay. So, as you can see, it prints yay. A really big concept in programming is an if statement. Every single game uses if statements. You've probably heard of them before. If I, for example, make a variable called isAlive, and I could just, I'll make it a thing called a boolean, so it can be either true or false. So it's all lowercase. If I type true, I can then do if isAlive equals true, then, and you can see it automatically adds end. So what that'll do is if isAlive is true, then anything in the middle of here will be ran. So if I print the player is alive, when I run the game, it'll say the player is alive because this is true. Now, if I want to see if the player is not alive, I can add an else statement. It automatically adds the end. And then I could print the player is dead. And what that will do is it'll still print the player is alive. But if I go into this script, change it to false, you will see the player is dead. Now, there's many different things you can do with this. You can do things such as if the player is alive, it'll display some sort of GUI on the screen saying that the player died. Or if the player has a certain amount of coins, they can buy something. So if statements are used a lot in programming, so it would be a very good idea to get used to them since you will see them a lot. Now we'll go into functions. So functions are reusable bits of code that you can add to your game. If you've programmed in any other programming language before, they should be pretty straightforward to you. If I type local function and then the name of it, I'll just call this like say hello and then parentheses. You don't need to put anything after here. You just press enter and it'll automatically add the end. If for some reason it doesn't add the end, let's say I delete this and I'm getting an error here, I can look back and see that, oh, this one doesn't have an end. So I'll just add it right there. For example, I can just make this print hello. And now if I want to run the code that is in this function, I can type say hello and then put parentheses after it. And now I can get rid of this. When I run it, it'll say hello because that's what I have in the function. You can also pass parameters into the function. This may be a little bit tricky if you've never worked with functions before, but you can pass a parameter. Let's just call this one name. And then you can do hello dot dot, which is how you basically combine strings. Hello dot dot name. So what this should print out, by the way, to add comments, you can put dash dash and then write a comment after that. It's just code that will not be ran. You can write text or anything in here. I could, for example, it should print something like hello Bob. So if I do say hello, and then as you can see, when I hover over this, it has name and it automatically detects that it's a string. Remember, a string is text. It automatically detects that. Most of the time it won't. And then you can just pass a string into here. So if I type Bob, it should say hello Bob. So it does exactly what we want it to do, and we can reuse our code this way. We can make it do different things in case we want it to do different things. And this is basically how all Lua scripts work. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. This is basically my first tutorial series that I've made. In the next few tutorials, I will explain how you can use Lua to actually interact with your game and do things such as spawning parts, changing the color of parts, or pretty much doing anything that will let you make an actual Roblox game. If you have any suggestions of what you want me to go over, maybe you want me to go over how services work, or you think you're a little bit stumped on a certain topic, let me know in the comments because I will definitely take it into account when I make my next few tutorials.